excited to start today's lesson because we are going to be learning about anatomy and physiology. And anatomy and physiology is a lot of fun because you're essentially learning how your body works and how God has knit you together in a very special way. You each should have a workbook, okay? This was sent home in your packet. Okay, it looks like this. Now, some of the stuff in here, I planned this for us being actually in school together. So some of this stuff we're just going to skip over because it just doesn't make sense to do it. Some of it we're going to do together in these videos, and some things I'm going to ask you to do on your own. So if you could just open up with me to the very first page. It's all laid out for you. Hopefully it's nice and organized. There is one correction that we're going to go over even today's lesson. Something that's just in the wrong spot by accident, so I'm gonna have to fix that. But I just want you guys to follow along, take out a pen, fill in your notes, and we are going to answer some of this stuff together. You should have already taken your textbook and read pages 263 to 271. Okay, it was a little bit of a longer section this time, but your textbook's not too much in regards to reading, so hopefully it won't take up too much of your time. But before we begin, we're going to talk about what makes us special and what makes us different from all the other creatures out there. And we've talked about this a lot. Genesis 1:27 says that God has created man in his image. And so that right there is a significant difference between us and other animals, okay? We have been made in the image of God. In a way, we look like him, okay? And so when we consider how we've been created, it should give us some pause because we can think about the fact that as we study ourselves, we are essentially in a way studying God and how he has knit us together. So what makes us different? Okay, we said that we're made in the image of God. Okay, humans share many physical characteristics with animals. That's your first blank there. But humans alone have been made in the image of God and have an immortal soul. We are the only creatures that have that characteristic. But because of that, there was a slight problem that happened when the first Adam sinned. All of humanity became sinful, and so God had to come up with a way to redeem. He didn't have to, he already knew how he was going to do it. He provided a way of salvation from sin. Salvation is the word I look for. And that's essentially what we just celebrated this last weekend. We celebrated how he died and took on the consequences for our sin. And that's just amazing when you take the time to really think about it. Every sin that you have ever sinned and will ever sin, he took on him. And he experienced that separation from God that we deserve. And all it takes is us believing in him, choosing to follow after him, choosing to say that he is king, and believing that his words are true. And as a result of that, we no longer have to be separated from God. And so that's just amazing right there in and of itself. Okay, so I told you we're going to be studying anatomy and physiology, but what in the world is anatomy? What in the world is physiology? Okay, I'm going to provide some PowerPoints in your RenWeb lesson plans, but I'd like you to stick with what still track with me as far as filling in these notes, okay? Anatomy is the study of organs and structures in your body, okay? So in other words, it's the study of your heart and your bones and your kidneys and your brain, okay? Those are your different organs, and there's other structures inside your body too that we're going to look at, okay? That's anatomy. Now, physiology is a little bit different. It's very similar, but it's different because it's looking specifically at how those organs and structures function. What were they designed for? How do they do their job? What sort of things does their job include, and what are maybe some ways that their jobs might have disorders or things that cause them not to do their job properly, okay? So to begin, today's lesson is all just an introduction to anatomy and physiology, and then we're going to also look at skin, because skin's a really short lesson, okay? So tissues and organs, you should see in your text there is this picture here, okay? Tissues and organs and body systems, essentially we're going from small to little. So over here you see an individual cell. When individual cells group together, they form tissues, okay? When those tissues group together, they form organs. Now that there is your heart, okay? Once those organs get joined up with other structures and organs and whatnot in your body, that makes up a system. And a system always performs a particular function. And then that particular structure or system is going to be in your body. Okay? Now here's where there's a little mistake in your notebook. Okay? I'm going to have you flip not to the next page, but to the next page that looks like this. Okay? It has a picture of the 4 different types of tissues there. And they're actually just written, that picture that's there, it has the names of them right there, so you can just write them down. But essentially there's nerve tissues. Nerve tissues are any tissues that have to do with your nervous system, and they essentially connect your whole body to your brain, and they send electrical impulses, okay? Connective tissue is any sort of tissue that connects one thing to another. And so that's kind of important because we don't want things just floating all over the place in your body. Muscle tissues is essentially something that's a muscle. And epithelial tissue, a way to think of epithelial tissue is it's has to do with your skin, okay? Or the outer layer of something, okay? So we're going to look at the example of a heart there, okay? And in your textbook or in your PowerPoint, you're going to see a picture of the heart, okay? The pericardium is the connective tissue, okay? So you've got your heart here. Around your heart is like this slippery sort of tissue that is there to prevent friction, okay? So when your heart beats, okay, it provides a slippery surface so that there's no irritation that happens as your heart continues to move, okay? This is a type of connective tissue. It connects your heart to the rest of the structures inside your body, okay? Nodes are the nervous tissue, okay? They're a way that the heart gets electrical signals. Your endocardium is the epithelial tissue. That's going to be the very outside of the heart. So you got the epithelial tissue, the endocardium, and then on top of that is the pericardium. And then the majority of your heart is a muscle, okay? So we're going to talk about that more when we get to the cardiovascular system. What I'd like you to do now is turn to this page here with all the different people on it, okay? You will see there's an overview of all the different organ systems. We talk about the integumentary system, which is your skin and protective layers, your digestive system, which helps to get nutrients into your body, your skeletal system, which is your bones, your muscular system is, anything that relates to the muscles and provides movement in your body, circulatory system transports blood, urinary system eliminates urine and gets toxins and wastes out of your body. Your respiratory system exchanges oxygen in the atmosphere with carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. So essentially how we get our carbon dioxide out and our oxygen in. Your lymphatic system helps protect the body from diseases and germs. Your nervous system connects your brain to your body, and essentially it controls what your body is doing. Your endocrine system also is kind of a control system, but it uses hormones instead of neurons to transmit information. And then your reproductive systems creates and protects new human life. Now you'll see I put these little pictures underneath there, okay? Number 8 and number 11 there aren't a picture for those ones. Everything else has a picture, and what I'd like you to do is try and figure out what goes where. And then tomorrow when we Zoom, I'm going to check in with you and see how you did on this, okay? It's not going to take very long, and do it in pencil. That way if you get something wrong, you can just erase it and we can change it up, okay? So that's just your introduction, and we're also going to look at skin. A skin is a part of the integumentary system, which is that first blank there. And the major question we're going to ask at the end of this section is, why are there so many different colors of skin, okay? So your integumentary system is the body system that includes your skin, your hair, and your nails. Anything that's on your outer coverings, okay? These not only hold everything in, but they also form a layer of protection. Your skin is your first line of defense against germs and diseases, okay? And so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at your skin on page... Oh, by the way, to do the little people thing, there is a little helpful thing in your textbook that you can also use to help you figure that out, okay? But on page 268, if you want to turn there real quick, you can pause this to get there. There is a picture of a piece of skin, okay? A cross-section of skin. It kind of talks you through the different layers. Okay, so your epidermis is your outer layer of skin. Okay, it's made of epithelial tissue. Remember I talked about how epithelial tissues are your outer tissues. And its surface is actually dead skin cells filled with keratin. Living deeper than that, it says living cells deeper in the epidermis eventually fill with keratin as they die and rise to the surface to replace the dead ones. So this very top surface here is dead, but then just directly underneath it are living cells that, as they start to die, fill with keratin, and then once they're dead, they slough off. Okay. And then also your fingernails and your toenails are also, and your hair is also made of keratin. Okay, and this keratin is a type of protein that your body uses for different reasons. Okay, for all sorts of things. So we're not going to get into all of that right now. The second layer is your dermis. That's kind of like that pinky, the lighter section there. It's thicker than the epidermis. And this is where you have your connective tissue. This is going to connect your skin to the next, whatever's next underneath it, okay? It's going to contain the blood vessels, the nerves, the follicles, and the glands that produce sweat, oil, and wax, okay? So accidentally, that hair follicles and pores, it's actually showing that it's under the subcutaneous layer here, right there in your text. Go ahead and circle that and move it up to the dermis layer. Okay, sorry about that, I didn't catch that. So that's your epidermis, sorry, your dermis layer. And then the final layer is your subcutaneous layer. It's essentially a fatty layer, okay? It's below the dermis. It has loosely arranged fat cells and fibers. They help to cushion and insulate your body. And the fibers help to attach your skin to your muscles underneath your skin, okay? Now, your skin has 4 major functions, okay? One is sensation, right? We feel things on the outside of our skin, okay? I can rub my fingers together and they feel smooth, okay? I can pick up my coffee mug and it feels cold, and that is a sensation that my fingers are picking up, okay? They feel pain, they feel heat, etc. Another reason you have skin is for your protection. Like I said, it's your first line of defense against germs, okay? So that's why if you get a cut, right, we want to cover that with a bandage so that, well, as best as we, and add some Neosporin, right, to help cover that so that the germs don't get into the cut. Because once they get into the cut, then they can get into your bloodstream. So the second function is protection. The third one is temperature regulation, okay? It helps to keep your body, it helps to sense different temperature changes, okay? So if your body gets too warm, it'll tell, your brain will tell your body to sweat, and so you'll have sweat released from those glands in your dermis. If you're too cold, you'll shiver and get goosebumps, and those goosebumps help to retain some of that heat for you, okay? The fourth thing is vitamin D, which is why we want to get outside when it's sunny, right? I love getting outside. I love the feel of the sun on my skin. But a good reason to do it also is because your body needs vitamin D, and it gets that from the sun. And you should have read all about those 4 things on page 269. So if you didn't, go back over them and reread them to make sure that you understand those functions of the skin. And now we're going to get to our last question, which was, how is it that there are so many different colors of skin, okay? So melanin is an important term you need to know. It's the brown pigment that determines human skin color. So within each of us, we